In today's Warhammer 40k Necrons painting video, I'm going to show you how I speed painted the Necrocyborg Flayers from Wargame exclusive. And it's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, here we are. I'm batch painting again. I'm painting my Necron warriors, which I converted into Lichguard and Praetorians, all magnetised. Of course, there'll be a video on how I painted these coming soon. But in this one, we are painting the Necron Flayed ones that I got from Wargame exclusive. I've reviewed these miniatures when I built them. Of course, I will link that video in the description for you. But today, we are going to paint them. Now, I was looking for a hook for this video, and I thought, how about if I try to paint these miniatures as fast as I can, make it into a speed painting video? Well, that's what I did. It took me 50 minutes to paint one of these miniatures. I don't know if you think that's fast or not, but compared to when I paint some of my Emperor's Children models, which can take me 12 to 15 hours to paint one miniature, I thought 50 minutes was pretty fast. So I started in the usual way, dry brushing with Iron Breaker, just carefully building up the colour, making sure I don't have too much paint on the brush. The first layer with this colour took me 5 minutes. I then repeated the step with Runefang still, another dry brush all over again, being careful with this, not being too sloppy, just making sure I build up the colour to give me a nice metal look. Again, this layer took me another 5 minutes. I continued with the Runefang still, this time doing an overbrush. That's basically a dry brush with a bit more paint on it. And I did this on the tips of all of the claws, just to try to make the claws look shinier and sharper. This step took me about a minute, so I'm 11 minutes in and the metal is finished. Now I plan to match these models into how I painted my original Flayed one. Of course, there's quite a bit of skin, and I have to say the skin looks awesome on these miniatures. It's very varied, and it came with lots of different arms with different amounts of skin on them. So I've got a unit of 10 which I'm painting here. I'm also going to differentiate them into 2 units of 5 with different materials on the bases. Now the paints which I used to paint my original Flayed ones aren't available anymore from Games Workshop, so I've gone with the nearest ones that they do. First of all, I painted rat skin flesh. I did 1 layer, just going over all of the flesh the best that I could, fairly roughly, just setting the pathway for where the skin's going to be. This just took me 5 minutes. However, the second layer took me a lot longer because I had to be a lot more careful, going on the edges of the skin, just making sure the skin was fully covered. This in total took me 15 minutes to put the second layer of skin on. Of course, I am watering down the paint with a little bit of water just to make the paint spread and be more smoother on the model. Next was Kislev flesh, and I did a dry brush of this colour all over the skin. Now usually I do the wash and then I do the highlighting, but because I want this skin to look like it's, well, dead skin effectively, I thought I would do the wash at the end after the highlights just to tone everything down. It took me 2 minutes to do the dry brushing, and then I moved on to the wash. Rakeland Flesh Shade was the wash, and it took me 2 minutes to carefully wash all of the skin. You could do it the other way, like I said, you could wash the skin, you could then re-dry brush with the base colour and then re-dry brush with the highlight. But for me, this made the skin feel a little bit more realistic, that it's been flayed and they'd spread it all over their bodies. Okay, so next I used Mute Green and I painted the eyes. I always do this for my Necrons, straight in, Mute Green, a dot on the eye. It looks pretty cool and it only took me 1 minute. Okay, so next it's the symbol on the chest, because of course the original Games Workshop miniatures have a Necron symbol on the chest, and I painted mine gold. These models don't have that. They have these lines going down the chest. There's 4 lines in total, I decided to paint the two lines in the middle in my gold colour, just to try to bring them into how my original miniatures look. I used the game colour Glorious Gold, which is the same paint as the really old Games Workshop Shining Gold, which is the gold which I used on my original Flayed ones. I painted this on the symbols and it took me 1 minute. Okay, so then it was time to do the bases. I glued a couple of different materials to the bases. I had these little green sort of cubes which I put on one, and the other one I used some green stuff crystals which I previously had made, and I have them all stored ready to go. I glued them on the other 5 bases. And then I used PVA glue, watered down slightly, and I painted that onto the base. And then of course I put the sand on the base and let it dry. Gluing the sand on the base took me a couple of minutes. This might take you longer if you have to make those crystals, but for me it was 2 minutes. I then painted the sand black. That took me 3 minutes to do. I used some watered down black and a couple of coats. And then I used Dawnstone Grey to dry brush the sand. That was 30 seconds. And then I painted the rims of the base black, and that took me a minute. And then it was time for the fun bit. Actually, before I went on to the fun bit, I took them outside and I varnished them with a rattle can. I used Winsor & Newton Professional Series, and I used a satin varnish, which is just how I do my Necrons. And then we moved on to the fun bit. Blood for the blood god. I always enjoy using this paint stroke special effect. And of course the reason why I varnished the miniatures before I did the blood effects is because if you do it afterwards, then of course that varnish can dull down those blood effects. So I carefully painted the blood all around the joins where the skin meets the metal. I didn't do it on every single piece, but the majority of it. And it took me 6.5 minutes in total. And there they are, all done 50 minutes later per miniature. Of course, I've got 10 miniatures here, but still under 10 hours to paint a unit of 10. I think that's pretty fast, but I'd love to know what you think. Was that fast or not? Anyway, here are the miniatures. I really hope you like them. I had a lot of fun both building but also painting these miniatures, and I think they look super cool when finished, and they do match in with my original Flayed ones as well. I can't wait to play these guys on the table. It's going to be awesome. Now, if you want to see me build and review these miniatures, then here is the video for you to watch next. And if you want to see some of my other Necron painting videos, then there's a playlist for you to check out.